We are the band Z's from New York City.
I think it's different for each of us, or at least that's how the band has become. You know, it's become a group of like very different individuals, and so I think we each bring something really different to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can speak to that better than I could, though, because you've been around a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like this isn't really like an influence so much as it is an intention. I think the kind of commitment is always to exceeding limits, you know, trying to do something where you're not totally sure if it's possible and kind of let whatever miscalculation comes out of that be part of it and sort of interact with that with like style, bringing a kind of sense of style to the kind of being at your limit. You're just like, you can't, like for example, I think with New Slaves, the object was to write like we wanted to write a half an hour long piece, I think when we started. It ends up being about 21, 22 minutes. And I mean, it really is like totally exhausting. You know what I mean? It's like really kind of a bit much. And that can lead to like sort of just things kind of slipping, you know, but also the way the piece works is that it like kind of accommodates that and makes that interesting. So that kind of quality, like throughout the whole thing, you know, that sort of pushing it to the limit, but then making that failure kind of part of the style of what's happening.
And balancing that with like ensemble playing, you know, trying to always sound like a unit or more than the sum of the parts. I think that's always been part of the band.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, always not sounding like a saxophone and the guitar and a drum, but there's a sound that results that's like uniquely ours. Yeah, it's always been there too.
I remember when I first joined the band on our first tour, we were just playing, we were playing a couple pieces, but when I first joined, your saxophone was so beat up that it could only make like 4 different tones, which just happened to be the tones that you needed for the set, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's always been about that, about embracing what you've got, because I don't know, we're in a time now where anyone can make any kind of music, basically. You just get a computer and you can just work it out. You know, you can make a symphony, or you can make dance music, or you can be in a punk band, or whatever. You can just create it really, really easily. So I think it's important to...
Yeah, I think that it's like, I don't really experience an increase of options as being associated with like freedom. Do you know what I mean? There's this sort of like constantly canceling out that quality, because the more there is there, the more sort of responsibility you have to the material, kind of, because there's like more to think about. So that sense of like, oh, I'm expanding, actually becomes this feeling of like I'm being boxed in by having to deal with all this stuff. But I mean, when we made our record like not too long ago called Music of the Modern White, and that was done in the studio, entirely in the studio, using the studio as an instrument. And that's like exactly what Ben is talking about, where it's like you can just do anything. I mean, there's absolutely no sense of limitation. But no matter what, in that setting, it's a matter of trying to find the place where there's like pushback, right? So it's like in New Slaves, that place is like duration, like an endurance. And in the studio, it might be like sort of pushing the plugins or the amplifiers or something to a point of where they're sort of getting frustrated and failing a little bit, and then sort of isolating that margin and like working within that, you know? I mean, everything will have some sort of membrane where shit is not really coming together quite right. You know what I mean? And that's always where we're locating ourselves.
It's usually the most interesting spot, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, nature, like the forest. Yeah,
You love it.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I grew up in the forest, and he didn't.
Yeah, I grew up in the city, so. Oh, I love playing anywhere, because it's always different, you know, playing different contexts is always great. But I've never been one to go camping or hiking or anything like that.
You're like not a nature guy, that's true.
You're not a nature guy.
Yeah. I like nature, I like it. But I'm with him, I grew up in DC and then moved to New York City and we don't have a ton of time.
Yeah, there's so much to do. But
It also takes a lot of energy to get out of the city.
yeah.
So you get kind of like stuck there.
Yeah, the city is like really, has a kind of extreme logic to it.
It's true. No, I mean, I think in the same way that, I mean, I don't know, I think that our band is kind of a response to that.
Oh yeah,
You know?
for sure.
It ties in with what we were just talking about completely to me. It's about, you know, you're stuck in this like weird little zone where you just have to try as hard as you can and it still might not work. So yeah, you just have to do the best you can to make it interesting within that. I've never worked on an assembly line. I've had lots of different kinds of jobs, but I've never done that. Interesting.
Huh,
That's really cool.
that is cool. Yeah, no, I've never worked there. I've done some weird stuff. I think about the pieces as like panels. Like a long time ago, I got really interested in abstract expressionist artwork, you know, from the 50s. And I mean, it's not my favorite thing now, but that quality of these like big monolithic panels, and like even within the paintings being organized in these like really striated like sections, you know, really affected me. I really think that way. It's kind of like this, you know. And then when I'm playing, I think about like beams of light. I kind of try to like really like think through the ideas, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? A sense of like extending your focus, you know, like really refining it and sharpening it. So that it's like this kind of laser, and I like, if I'm like getting distracted, I'll like visualize like normally like a kind of like ray of yellow light.
But you never thought about
What? I'm sorry.
VJ, you never thought about VJing? Like
No, we actually toured, last time we toured Europe, we toured with the VJ. And when we're in, what we decided about that was that it's like, it's cool when the club is set up to do that. And we have done subsequent concerts like that. But when it's like a sort of do-it-yourself setting and they've got to just bring your own stuff, it's like almost never cool.
Yeah.
It's sort of like if the shit is on the ceiling mounted and it's like running into the board and they can just plug in their laptop and do it, it's awesome. And we love, I love it. I'm like super into it. There's like some footage of us online at Whitechapel. And that was like really well put together and it looks blazing. Like, and I think it's like adds something really interesting. But when it's sort of like you're treating the VJ as like another member of the band and they have to come and like get set up in the same way that you do and sort of negotiate where they put it and stuff, it's too much. And then if it goes wrong, it looks horrible.
yeah, sometimes it's better not to have.
Yeah. Sometimes you wind up with a blue screen with a little box in the middle.
Yeah.
It's no good. I'm curious. Do you visualize things when you're playing?
Not necessarily. Just like in the past year, I got really interested in a lot of the abstract expressionist stuff. Right now at the Museum of Modern Art, they have a really big exhibit of a lot of that stuff. And then there's like some related music that was happening in New York around that time. Morton Feldman and some different composers that were applying those kind of ideas of building music vertically, so it kind of becomes an object instead of like a linear story. And that definitely is related in my head to this music. This is actually the first tour that I've done with this band.
It's the second show.
Second show. I spent the past like 3 months listening to this stuff a lot, and there's definitely some sort of correlation there. But when I'm playing, I don't really visualize things.
Yeah, I don't know if I do. I've been trying to open my eyes more when I play. I tend to close my eyes, which isn't very engaging sometimes. So I don't know. Usually for me it's just about immersion, getting lost in it. And so whether that translates into something that I see in my head or just enjoying the pitch black or enjoying how the lights are changing, on my eyelids or something.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.